I never thought much about elevators. They were just part of daily life. Press a button, step in, step out. But after what happened, I can't even look at one without feeling sick to my stomach. I started a new job a few weeks ago. Nothing fancy, just a corporate gig in a high-rise building downtown. The pay was decent, and the hours were flexible, which worked for me. I usually stayed late, not because I was a workaholic, but because I liked the quiet. The office had a different feel at night. Empty, still, almost peaceful. Almost. From the beginning, something about the building felt off. It wasn't anything obvious. Just small things. The way the lights flickered in the hallways sometimes, even though the place was modern. The way the security guard never made eye contact when he handed me my ID badge. And the elevator, God, the elevator. It was old, despite the building being relatively new. The buttons were worn down, the doors creaked when they opened, and the digital floor display lagged like it was thinking too hard. But the weirdest thing? It never stopped on the 13th floor. The button was there, but no one ever pressed it. No one even talked about it. I didn't think much of it at first. A lot of buildings skipped the 13th floor. It was just superstition, right? But one night I found out the truth. It was late, past midnight. I was the only one left in the office, finishing up some reports. I packed up, stretched, and headed to the elevator. The building was silent. Too silent. Even the usual hum of the vending machines in the break room was gone. I pressed the call button. The doors slid open. Empty. I stepped in, hit the button for the lobby, and leaned against the wall, waiting. The ride down was smooth at first. Then, somewhere around the 10th floor, the elevator shuddered. Not just a little jolt, like it had hit something solid. The lights dimmed. My stomach clenched. Then the buttons flickered. The numbers began cycling rapidly, 10, 9, 8. Then they reversed. 9, 10, 11, 12. The elevator slowed. And then, the light for 13 lit up. I hadn't touched it. The elevator stopped. The doors slid open. I don't know what I expected to see, an empty hallway, maybe. But what was in front of me wasn't just another floor. It wasn't normal. It didn't even look like the rest of the building. The walls were covered in something dark, like soot or old, dried blood. The air smelled wrong, thick and stale, like it hadn't been breathed in years. The hallway stretched into the distance, dimly lit by flickering fluorescent lights, but something was off about them. They weren't attached to the ceiling. They just hovered there, buzzing faintly. I felt a wave of nausea. Every instinct in my body screamed, "Don't step out." Then I saw movement. At the far end of the hallway, just at the edge of the flickering light, something shifted. Not footsteps. No rustling of fabric. Just a change. A shape, blending in with the darkness, shifting like it was trying to match the shadows. I reached for the elevator buttons, my fingers shaking. I pressed the closed door button again and again, whispering, "Come on, come on, come on." The shape moved. Not walking. Not running. Just shifting like a glitch in reality closer. The doors slid shut just as something long and thin darted forward. A hand? A limb? I don't know. It was gone before I could process it. The elevator jerked, dropping suddenly, like the cables had been cut. I grabbed the railing, my heart hammering. Then, just as suddenly, it stopped. The doors opened again. Lobby. I stumbled out, gasping, the air suddenly feeling too thin. The security guard was at his desk, staring at me. "You saw it, didn't you?" he muttered. I couldn't answer. He just shook his head. "Next time, don't get in if the elevator's already waiting." I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that hallway. The floating lights. The shifting darkness. That thing reaching for me. I told myself it was just my mind playing tricks. Maybe I was overworked, maybe I imagined it. but deep down I knew what I saw was real. The next morning, I walked into the office like nothing happened. No one said a word about the night before. People were at their desks, typing away, laughing at their screens. Normal. Everything looked normal. But I felt different. When I stepped into the elevator that morning, my hands clenched into fists. I forced myself to stare at the buttons. The 13th floor button was still there, like it had always been, like nothing was wrong. I wanted to ask someone about it. Maybe a coworker, maybe the security guard. But something inside me said I shouldn't. Like speaking about it would make it worse. So I kept my mouth shut. But things started to change. At first, it was small stuff. My office chair wasn't where I left it. My pens would go missing, then show up in places I hadn't been. I'd hear typing when no one was there. Then, people started acting strange. There was this guy, Mark, always polite, always had a joke ready. One day, I greeted him in the break room. He just stared at me, not at my face, at my neck, like he was looking at something crawling on me. His mouth opened, but he didn't say anything, just turned and walked away. Another night, I stayed late again. I told myself it was fine. The elevator was just an elevator. I wasn't going near it. But when I passed the conference room, I saw something that stopped me cold. A group of my coworkers just standing there. They weren't talking, weren't moving, just standing in a circle, facing inward. The lights above them flickered, and for a split second, I thought I saw their shadows bend the wrong way. I turned around and walked out. I took the stairs that night. The next morning, I got a message on my computer. No sender, no subject. Just 3 words. Stop taking stairs. I spun around, scanning the office. No one was looking at me. No one seemed to care. That's when I realized, whatever was happening, it wasn't just the elevator. It was the building. And it was watching me. I stared at the screen, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. Stop taking stairs. I didn't even breathe for a few seconds. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it. No sender. No trace of who sent it. Just those 3 words. I spun around in my chair, scanning the office. No one seemed to be paying attention to me. Phones rang, keyboards clicked, the usual background noise of a workplace. Normal. Too normal. But I knew better now. I shut my laptop, grabbed my bag, and left early that day. I didn't wait for the elevator. I didn't take the stairs either. I walked to the emergency exit, took a deep breath, and pushed the door open. The second I stepped outside, I felt it, like a weight lifting off my chest. The air felt real again. Fresh. I decided not to go back the next day. Maybe not ever. I needed time to think. I needed space. But then, the call started. The first call. My phone rang at 3:13 a.m. I woke up with a start. The number was unknown. I hesitated, but something in me, some deep, nagging fear, made me answer. At first, there was nothing. Just static. Then a voice. It was my own. You need to come back. I hung up and threw my phone across the room. Sleep didn't come after that. Back to the building. I didn't want to return, but I had no choice. I needed my job. Bills don't stop just because your office turns into a nightmare. When I walked in, the security guard was waiting. Same guy from before. He didn't even check my ID this time. Just stared at me. You shouldn't have left, he said quietly. I didn't respond. Just walked past him. The office looked the same. But I could feel it in the air. Something had shifted. Like the walls were watching me. Like the building knew I tried to leave. I sat at my desk and turned on my computer. The moment the screen lit up, a message popped up. You shouldn't have left. I slammed the laptop shut. Something was very, very wrong. The elevator comes for me. That night, I stayed later than I wanted to. Not because I was working, because I was scared to leave. At exactly 11:13 p.m., the lights flickered. The whole office went dark for 3 full seconds. When they came back on, my screen was on again. Another message. Time to go down. Then the elevator dinged. My stomach dropped. I wasn't near the elevator. No one else was here. But the doors slid open anyway. Empty. Waiting. And the 13th floor button was glowing. I grabbed my bag, my jacket, my everything and ran for the stairs. I pushed the door open and stepped into the elevator. Not the stairwell. I spun around, my breath caught in my throat. The door behind me was gone. Just smooth, cold walls. I hadn't walked into the elevator. I knew I hadn't. But I was in it now. The doors slid shut. I lunged for the buttons, slamming my fists against them. Nothing worked. The lobby button didn't respond. The emergency stop didn't light up. Then the floor numbers started changing. 13. I backed into the corner, my entire body trembling. The elevator stopped. The doors didn't open immediately. Instead, the lights dimmed. The walls groaned, like something was pressing against them from the outside. Then a voice. Right next to my ear. "You're not supposed to be here." I spun around. No one was there. Then the doors slid open. And I stepped into hell. The 13th floor. The hallway stretched on forever. The air was thick, like I was breathing in smoke. The lights flickered, but this time, they weren't floating. They were swaying, like something unseen was brushing past them. The walls moved. Not in a way you'd notice immediately, but if you looked long enough, they seemed to pulse. Like the building was alive. I told myself to stay put. I told myself to wait for the elevator to close. But then I heard it. Footsteps. Not heavy ones. So, careful. Like someone was trying not to be heard. Coming toward me. I turned my head slowly, dreading what I would see. There was a figure at the far end of the hall. Not walking. Not running. Just standing. Watching me. My breath hitched. I felt cold all over, like ice was spreading through my veins. Then it tilted its head and grinned. I didn't think. I just ran. The hallway twisted and turned in ways that didn't make sense. The doors on either side were all locked, but I didn't dare stop to check them. I just ran, my own footsteps echoing back at me. Then ahead I saw an open door. I sprinted toward it, every instinct screaming move, move, move. I dove inside and slammed the door behind me. Darkness. Only my own panicked breathing filled the room. Then a whisper. "You brought it with you?" The lights flickered on. And I saw my reflection in the glass window. But my reflection wasn't me. It was grinning. And then it stepped forward. Toward me. I stood frozen, my breath shallow, my heart slamming against my ribs. My reflection, no, the thing in the glass, tilted its head, mimicking my movements but slightly off, like it was learning how to be me. Then it took a step forward. Not in the reflection. Into the room. I stumbled back, my legs barely holding me up. My back hit the wall, cold and solid, but everything else felt unreal. It smiled wider. Too wide. The corners of its mouth stretched in a way that wasn't human. And then it spoke. "You took my place." The voice was mine, but hollow, distant, like it was coming from inside a deep tunnel. I shook my head. "Oh, no, I didn't. I don't even know what this place is." It stepped closer, dragging its fingers along the desk beside it. The surface warped where it touched, like heat bending metal. "Then why did you come back?" I didn't have an answer. I didn't even remember how I got here. My body moved before my brain could catch up. I turned and bolted for the door. The handle wouldn't budge. I yanked at it, my hands slick with sweat. Behind me, the thing sighed. "You can't leave." "Not yet." The lights flickered again. When they came back, the room wasn't the same. The walls had stretched taller, The corners of the room no longer sharp but curved, bending in ways that made my head spin. The air smelled different, damp, metallic, like blood and earth. I turned back, pressing myself against the door. The thing was gone, but its reflection was still in the glass. Watching, grinning. Then the glass shattered. A soundless explosion, jagged shards flying outward, but instead of falling, they hovered in the air, suspended like time had stopped. And in the middle of it all, the reflection crawled out. I ran. I didn't care where, didn't think, just moved. The hallway was different now, longer, twisting in on itself. The lights above buzzed and flickered like they were struggling to stay on. And then ahead of me, the elevator. The doors were open, waiting. I didn't stop to think. I threw myself inside, slamming the close button so hard my fingers hurt. The doors didn't close. Something was holding them open. I turned, my stomach lurching. The thing was standing just outside, no longer smiling. It tilted its head again. But this time, it wasn't mimicking me. It was deciding. Then it whispered, "Not yet," and it stepped back. The doors slid shut. The elevator lurched, then plunged. Faster than it should. Faster than gravity should allow. I clutched the railing, my ears ringing, my stomach flipping like I was in free fall. The numbers on the panel flickered. 12, 11, 10. I was going back. Back to where? Then a thought hit me so hard I felt sick. What if I wasn't going back at all? The elevator slowed. The doors slid open. And I stepped into silence. I stepped out of the elevator. The office looked the same. The same dull lighting. The same desks. The same hum of computers running. But something was wrong. The air felt heavy, like the whole room was holding its breath. I turned in slow, careful steps, my shoes barely making a sound on the floor. There were people at their desks, typing, talking on phones, laughing, but they weren't looking at me. Not even a glance. I swallowed hard and walked toward my desk, my hands shaking so badly I had to shove them in my pockets. Then I saw it. My chair was already occupied. By me, or someone who looked exactly like me. I stopped breathing. They were typing, focused, like they belonged here. Like I didn't. I took a step back, heart pounding so hard it hurt. That's when they turned. And smiled. A small, knowing smile. Like they'd been waiting for me to notice. I opened my mouth to speak, asterisk, asterisk, to demand answers, to scream something, asterisk, asterisk, but my voice wouldn't come out. I spun around, my mind screaming at me to run. And that's when I saw them. The others. Every single person in the office was staring at me now. Silent. Expressionless. Their eyes were wrong. Empty, dark, like they weren't really people at all. I backed away, toward the elevator, fumbling for the button. It wouldn't light up. My reflection, the thing in my chair, stood up. I felt it before I saw it. That same twisting feeling in my gut. Like reality itself was bending. They took a step toward me, their smile widening. "You shouldn't have left." My head was spinning. I turned and bolted. Not for the elevator. Not for the door. Just anywhere. But the office stretched too far. Like the walls were pushing back, keeping me inside. And then, I blinked. And I was back in the elevator. The doors slid shut. The lights flickered. And the numbers started going down. Faster. Deeper. Past the lobby. Past the basement. Into the floors that shouldn't exist. And this time, I knew there was no coming back.